Welcome to Ram and Goat Astrology. Join Helena and me, Laura Lee, each week as we take you on an explorative journey of astrology and health, reading charts, talking planetary energies, while educating and entertaining you. We help you navigate the mysteries of the stars and how they affect you personally. Here we go. Hello, welcome to Ram and Goat Astrology. I'm Laura Lee.
And I am Helena. Welcome. Hi.
Welcome to episode 11.
Yep.
11. And today we're going to chat about, in general, the planets and what they do and how their energy affects us and influences us, just to kind of go back and give some basic astrological information. I know we kind of jump all over, but we thought we would dive into the planets to help give a little bit more understanding to what it is that each one represents.
For sure. We will do a few of these, like astrology 101, 101, 101. And we thought we'd start with explaining the energies of the planets, because it makes sense. And then when you hear us talking about, you have Mars here and you have Pluto there, then you will more understand what we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you don't already.
Exactly. So let's dive in and do our presentation here. All right. So the first thing to talk about, I was reading Stephen Forrest's book on the book of Pluto. And one of the things he pointed out that I thought was quite relevant is that we talk about, in astrology, we talk about things that we understand aren't planets. We call them planets, right? We understand that the sun is not a planet. And in the study of astronomy, we understand the differential descriptions between asteroids and planets and stars and all of that. In astrology, we group all of the energetic bodies that give off a frequency into the category of planet. That's,
we like that.
Just kind of describe that for people, because I know people are like, but the sun's not a planet. I know, we know that.
I know, I always feel like I have to say that too.
We get that. It's okay.
I know.
So that is my little astrological disclaimer. We are not in the astronomy section where it's all very scientifically categorized, which is lovely, and we thank them. But we're in the astrology, and where we group all of these energetic bodies together to represent the various energies that we feel.
Yeah.
So this is the biggest one we talk about. It's the main one in the sky that we focus on, is the sun sign. And the people always know their sun sign. I rarely know anybody who doesn't at least know that about themselves.
Yeah. So when you hear someone say, I'm a Leo, or I'm a Cancer, then that is where the sun was placed when they were born.
Yes. So that is what they are referring to. And so the sun, each of the planets has a ruling sign. And for the sun, the ruler is Leo. So Leo and the sun have those similar energies. So this is what represents your ego. Everybody's got one. It's not a bad thing. Sometimes people need a little bit of a check every once in a while. But your ego is this outgoing overall vitality. It's our basic identity. And I love when people really embody their sun. They are really living this creative life force. That's what they've got, the brightest thing in their chart. So this is what directs us and can be considered the boss of our chart, right? That's the main one we talk about. But it can also be highly influenced by any other planets around it. Or, if you have Saturn right next to your sun is going to have some challenges in shining fully. That's something you have to mature into with Saturn next to your sun. So you'd have to learn how to let your full light shine. And that's what you need to kind of grow up and mature into. So as a child, your sun sign might not be as dominant if Saturn happens to be right next to it. So the sun can be a really major point in your chart, or it can be influenced significantly by the other planets and their locations.
Yeah, the sun, I like to see, if you just look at the sun, if you look outside, how much the sun affects us, it's basically the same with astrology. It affects us a lot. it's how we shine. It's really how we shine.
Yeah.
And we're going to go and talk about houses in another episode, but in astrology also, where in what house your sun is placed also has a huge significance. So my sun is placed in the 7th house. So the 7th house, which is relationship, is to me this life a huge place, because the sun is shining up all of that whole house. It's literally putting a huge spotlight on it.
Yeah. So that's how the house shows up. The planet is the energy and the what, and then the house is the where. And
exactly, yes.
Yep, it's something that we recognize. And when we're acting out our sun, we're purposeful and we're directive and we're very creative. And it's a lot of people have been taught through programming of childhood, or maybe their religious programming or their cultural programming, to not let their sun come out, to not let it shine. And really they've learned to literally put their own clouds around themselves. And that's something that some people have to, that's their life purpose, is to let their sun shine fully, right? We talked about Saturn just a minute ago. So and then your will to live, I think, is a big placement here. And there are certain areas where the will to live can seem a little challenging, you know, so depending on the aspects or things happening in the transits, the planets going around at the time, like it can very much impact your sun, and the will to live is not as vital and as strong as maybe it was a year ago, or it will be in 6 months. But that time frame can very much affect people, and they make choices that maybe are life ending, or you know what I mean, like in any sense of the word. But your will to live is really wrapped up in your sun sign. So if that's something you've suppressed or had to suppress, it can take a lot of work and a lot of therapy to overcome that. And that's where astrology plays a huge role, again, in therapy, which we've talked about.
I also want to add like sort of how, if you're going to sit down and look at your chart, how to sort of simply read your own chart. You see, you learn about the energy of the planet, and then whatever sign it's in is sort of the filter in which this energy of the planet will come through, and the house shows in what area in your life that will happen.
Yeah, I like that.
So that's sort of how you put together, that's sort of how you read a chart, pretty much.
I like to think of the sign as almost like, what outfit of clothing does that planet wear? You know, like, how does it dress? Is it dressing in an Aries way? Is it dressing in a Scorpio way, right? There's different moods that each sign carries with it. So that's, I always picture like the planet getting dressed up in that energy.
So if you have your sun in Scorpio, then the sun would get dressed up in this like a black velvet dress.
It would have sunglasses on, and maybe like a black hat kind of covering half their face, right? And and like a black jacket on with the collar turned up.
Right? For sure. And if this is, and you have your 10th house there, it would sort of be you at work.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I love it.
Something like that. Something like that. It's not as easy as that, but something like that.
I love it. All right. Tell us about the moon, Helena.
Oh, the moon. So the moon's energy is all of the emotions, everything that, like our needs, our emotional and deepest personal needs. And it sort of has energy of the mother as well. It's the mother of the zodiac. And
just feminine energy in general.
But it's really how we react, our emotions or reactions, usually, because we usually react emotionally. So wherever your moon is placed in your chart, you can see how you act when you get emotional, and also what you need to feel safe.
It's the responsive energy. People are emotional beings. Humans are emotional beings. It's how we shop. You buy things based on your emotional response to it.
Very true.
That's a big one. So it's our response, our instant response, and really how we protect ourselves emotionally is found with the moon. And then our deepest personal needs. How do we need to feel to have that emotional bucket fulfilled? Maybe we had a parent that was a gift giver, but our emotional need was acts of service or, quality time. And so our emotional bucket wasn't filled because the communication wasn't understood on what, our needs were. So that's a childhood thing that almost everybody has. And that's our emotional response in our moon. And our moon has a lot of play in our world. And I love learning about the moon. And I actually created my moon-based journals to help people unpack their emotional garbage and unpack all of the stuff that they don't know that they're storing inside of themselves based on their moon placements. So each book is written based on the element, whether your moon is in a water or a earth or a fire or an air, you process emotions very differently. So I wrote these books. You can find them on Amazon, Elemental Emotions.
I read the
one, this
Earth
is
Signs, and it was really shocking how much I felt like you were seeing right through me when I was reading those questions.
Yeah, my husband was like, you're really good at asking the right questions.
Yeah.
You've got to put this into a book. And I was like, okay, but I can't just do one book for everybody. Like that doesn't work. So I tailored it to the elements. And I feel like the people, I've been getting great feedback, and the people who are doing it have really found great clarity that they didn't know they needed, because I just ask the intriguing questions in the way they respond best emotionally. So that's where we need to feel secure, and how we make ourselves feel secure, comfortable, and safe is found with our moon. So if you're not feeling that, let's talk. Like, let's do a reading with you and me and Helena, and we'll dive into your moon and help you understand yourself on a deeper level so that you can do the self-care that you need.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting that you said that's how we shop, because I never thought about that, how that reflects in myself, but it's so accurate, because my moon is placed in Capricorn, and I only want to buy things if it's
practical.
If it's practical. It has to be practical.
You can't, it's got to be frugal and practical and make sense, and it's not going to be frivolous.
I keep clothes until they are so worn out and holes in them, and everyone around me tells me to throw them away, but I can't, because I can still wear them. What's wrong with it? It still does the job. I don't want to buy something new just because. No.
I love me some Capricorns. So practical. So practical. I love it. I love it. Oh, what's the next planet? We got Mercury is next. So Mercury actually has two rulers. One of them's an air sign and one of them's an earth sign. So we got Gemini and Virgo. So both Gemini and Virgo have similar Mercury qualities. But this is the messenger planet. And when it comes to Greek mythology, this would have been Hermes, and Hermes was the god of messengers. He carried notes here and there. He was the guy that knew all of the information. And I love Mercury. It's very much a big player in my chart. And this is an intellectual planet. Like, this is how we think. How do we get our point across? And how we study and how we process our information is very much ruled by our Mercury.
Very much. So, for example, if you have your Mercury in an earth sign, you'll be someone who processes information a little bit slower. You might have to hear things twice or three times to really understand it, and you take your time. And if you have Mercury in a fire sign, well, guess what? You're gonna be very fast.
Bam, bam, bam. I find that Mercury and earth signs, I have two kids with this, they need both visual and audio learning. Like, they have to see it and hear it in order to fully comprehend it. It's almost like they have to completely immerse themselves in the information with visual and audio for their brain to fully take it in.
Interesting.
So I find that very interesting, how their brain really, and it takes a while for them to get it, but once it's in there, like it's in there. It's there.
That is also how you communicate. So like Laura, you have a fire Mercury.
No, my Mercury is actually one of my water planets, one of my 2 water planets.
Really?
Mine is in Pisces, but it's in the 11th house, which is an air ruled house. But my Mercury in Pisces, what's interesting about it is it makes me very fluid in how I communicate. I can shift to the needs of the person I'm working with. So if they need me to tone it down and take some deep breaths and speak calmer and quieter, I can do that. Or if somebody needs me to talk louder or be faster or funnier or whatever, I can do. It's very, very, very changeable. Very changeable.
Interesting, because it's in Pisces, and because I also have a water Mercury, but mine's in Cancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see. Mine is a little bit different than yours.
It is. It shows up different in the 2 water signs for sure.
Yeah.
So how's your Mercury show up?
My Mercury shows up. I've always had trouble with trouble communicating, trouble with words, but also my Chiron is in there. That's another story. But yeah, I've always found it hard to find the right words at the right time. And when I explain something, I want to do gestures. I just want to show, and I sort of like want to do. I do sounds a lot. I do sounds and gestures, not words. Yeah. So this podcast is really, it's really.
I communicate a lot in hyperboles, and a hyperbole is where I use. It's kind of similar to a metaphor, but I speak in other ways. So if I'm trying to explain how the liver works, I will explain that it's like an airport with the tower control center, and then it's the railway station where you have this and that. Like I give a lot of analogies and metaphors and hyperboles to help people get different visuals in their heads. So it's, again, those 2 fish in Pisces swimming in different directions. I can cover a lot of ground with how I explain it. And if that fish didn't work, well, I'll try this way over here. And I just kind of keep swimming around until I get the point across. And also, I think my Mercury in Pisces makes me very intuitive with how I need to communicate.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know when to just be quiet and not say anything too. That's a big one too. I've also learned that one the hard way, but So I find it interesting. Mercury rules are how we are coordinated. It represents our coordination and the way the brain controls the body. And so that's an interesting one as well. My son's Mercury is in Taurus, and I've never seen anybody, and then my husband's is in an earth sign too, and I've never seen people smash their body into things, like stub their toe or run their foot into a chair, or like my 2 boys just hurt themselves chronically.
Yeah, I know someone exactly like that with Mercury in Taurus.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
If your Mercury is in a water sign, you're more fluid and you can kind of dance around, right? Like water can. But man, these Mercury and Earth people, they just run right into the damn cabinet. I find that one interesting. Yeah, so this is how we speak, whether our words are flowery or our written words are concise and very businesslike, or like how we communicate is and write and speak and all of that, the dictation of our speech. Your Mercury will also tell you if you're good at learning other languages too. So that's another one.
Yeah.
But I love Mercury. I do. The planets and Venus. Venus has a double ruler, Taurus and Libra. So we again have an earth and an air sign with this planet as well.
And now we're on Venus. Yeah, so Venus is love and money.
Yeah.
Our values, what we value, our finances, with the money. What gives us pleasure.
And this one is the goddess of love. And so this is very much how we approach relationships of the heart, like important relationships to us. And Venus will tell you where it's placed, will tell you if you are a leader that's going to jump forward and go, hey, I like you. Where's your phone number? Let's go hang out, right? Or if you're going to be in the background and never be the one to initiate, right? Like Venus is going to tell you how you date best and who you're going to be most compatible with, really. And it's really connected to Mars. So your Mars and someone else's Venus, your Venus and someone else's Mars are very, very important in a relationship reading for sure.
Yep.
And not just a sexual reading or not just a, lovers, but this goes for business partnerships. This goes for, one-on-one with parents and one-on-one with siblings. And like, it's these deep relationships of the heart, our besties, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So also here's how we spend our money. So we shop in an emotional way with the moon. And once the moon says, I want that, that will fulfill my needs, Venus is like, okay, let's chat, right? So now Venus comes in to show how we spend our money and then what kinds of gifts we buy people. That's a big one too. Yep. So this is wherever our Venus is, its placement in the houses of the natal chart. This is going to reveal which area of life we seek to balance and refine and get pleasure from. So my Venus is literally on top of my 10th house, which is our purpose in life, our contribution to society, and typically our career. So my Venus and my life purpose and my career are all wrapped up together. So my relationships of the heart are usually business related. Hi, Helena. That's just how it works. Let's move on to Mars. Ooh, tell us about Mars.
So Mars is sort of that fighter planet. It's where we have, it's a very powerful planet. It's the one, it's the go-getter. And yeah, how we fight. It's the god of war. The ruler of Mars is Aries. And you think about Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and it's sort of that kid who doesn't really know the consequences yet, and that's sort of Mars as well. It will just go and act. It's sort of the planet of action. Yeah, and sex.
Yeah, this is not the planet that thinks about things. I always think of Aries and Mars as like the bar fight guy, right? Who just like, it's an instantaneous reaction. It's not thought about. It's not premeditated. This is your impulsivity or your rash or your impatient behavior, or your aggressiveness and your forcefulness. And it can sometimes surprise people where just all of a sudden you're a really cool, calm person and real collected and usually real level-headed. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, there's Mars, right? And it can sometimes surprise people. But this is usually the push that gets us out of bed in the morning. It's our drive. I like to think of Mars as like, this is the car we drive through life, right? Yeah. This is our desire and our active energy. So do you drive a car that's driven by feelings in water, or do you drive a car that's driven by action in fire? Or what about in air, where you like to sit and have conversations and have people around you? Or is it in earth where you just like to be and just be alone and do your thing and, work hard on what your project is? What is your drive in life? I love thinking about Mars that way. A lot of people like to think about it as anger, which, yes, that's part of it.
Can be.
But mostly it's the drive that moves us.
Yeah.
Where's your Mars?
My Mars is in the first house in Aries.
In Aries, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. And my Mars is in Libra, which is opposite of that, which would make us quite compatible, because I have this balance, give and take, and you have this action, let's go. So it's a really nice placement to work with Aries and Libra together, which my son is in Aries too. So I understand the energy. So I love when you take the lead and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm very comfortable in that role too, the starter of things. I like to start things, to ignite things.
Yep. I love it. So I think the planet Mars is a big one to understand, especially with children, because this is what you're going to deal with their entire childhood, really. I mean, Mars doesn't tend to mature very quickly. And this is mostly all the way around 30, I feel like, is when Mars finally starts to get their head on straight. But you're going to deal with a lot of Mars energy with kids. Like, you just are. This is how they fight. So if you have a kid who is normally really, really cool and calm and collected, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, they punch you in the face, you should go check their Mars placement.
Yeah.
And see what you got. My daughter is 20 months old and she's super Aquarian, except her Mars is in Taurus. and she will very much put her bullhorns up your butt randomly. Like she just, when she wants you to move or she wants to do something and you're in the way and she gets angry, she has no problem like plowing you down in whatever way she does it. And sometimes it's hitting, sometimes it's literally pushing you. Like she gets to be a bull in a china shop for sure.
Yeah.
It's funny to see. It's kind of irritating to deal with.
So you wrote down something good here. The push that gets us out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Because some people, I've actually posted this on a Facebook astrology group. I did a survey because my second child has Mars in Leo. And I was thinking about this because Leo is the lion, right? And lions aren't real active creatures first thing in the morning. And they like to sleep in. And I picture like a lion just stretching and yawning and going back to sleep. And that's what she does every flipping day. But she loves to be nocturnal. She loves to be out hunting at night, right? And it's so interesting. And I did a survey. And I want to say about 95% of the people that answered, it was well over 20 people that answered, were very similar. And the 5% that weren't actually flipped it. And they became like a very disciplined Leo, where they made themselves get up in the morning, but they all made themselves get up to do physical activity and go to the gym and work out. Yeah. Those people were like, oh yeah, I used to do that when I was younger. And then I grew out of it. And now I get up every morning and they're like super disciplined about their looks and taking care of their appearances.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Mars in Leo, that sounds just about right. That's what would get you up in the morning.
Exactly. Isn't that funny? I thought that was
for sure.
I loved it. So what do we got next here?
We have Jupiter, planet of plenty.
Woohoo!
Yeah. And the ruler of Jupiter is Sagittarius. And Jupiter is sort of seen as this big ball of luck. Like whenever Jupiter comes around, it would be a lucky time in your life, usually, depending on what else is going on. I mean, it's the planet who will expand things. So if, of course, it can also expand bad things.
It can go the other way.
It can go both ways. But for sure, the planet of plenty, like a Santa Claus, bringing gifts.
Yeah, very much associated with good luck and bounty. And I like to give the examples. So I've been watching a show on Apple TV called Long Way Up, and it's with Ewan McGregor and his buddy Charlie, and they're taking a motorcycle trip up through South America. And I, of course, because this is what I do, I went and looked up Ewan McGregor's birth chart while we're watching the show, because astrologers do this stuff. And he has Jupiter on his first house and his rising sign, and so does my daughter. And I was very intrigued by this, to watch how this Jupiter played out. And it was in Sagittarius, which is all about travel, right? And I think it was in Sag. And so he was really having some challenges on this trip, but the challenges always seemed to work out, right? Like their electric bike would run out of battery, but then like there would be something that would show up to help them and plug it in or whatever it was. So Jupiter does that. It's not that bad things don't happen. It's just that they don't seem to last a while, and a solution seems to show up.
Because they're just so optimistic. Jupiter is so optimistic.
Yeah. Yeah. And he really is. Every time something goes wrong, he's like, oh, it's okay. We'll just do this. Go here. Yeah. I like to call him the eternal optimist, especially when Jupiter's a prominent planet in your chart. But this is very much including your mental and your spiritual growth. Jupiter is in that realm of spiritual development. So this is where you would be doing a lot of personal development work. Jupiter really encompasses personal development work. So, if you are really looking to expand your knowledge base in all things healing and all things growth and development of your soul and all of that, you'd want to look to Jupiter in your chart and see how that works best for you. What sign is it in? What house is it in? And how you can work with that energy to really keep enhancing your spiritual and mental growth.
Yeah, I have a story about that.
Yeah.
So when I didn't know this before it happened, I looked it up afterwards. But when I when I decided to go for this astrology course where I met you, Laura, um, Jupiter in the sky was transiting my north node in Pisces.
Nice.
Exactly at that time. So Jupiter was expanding my north node, which is sort of my soul's purpose, where I'm going in life, which was in Pisces. And Pisces is a very spiritual sign.
Spiritual and healing and
yeah,
yep.
Makes so much sense that that's when I decided to learn about astrology more.
I love that. I love hearing how the energy shows up, because as astrologers, we don't know. We are not predictors of the future. What we do is we read the energy and we say, here's the general area, here's the general thing, but everybody's story is different and unique. But when you put all these Jupiter people together who've had this particular experience, their stories will kind of form a cohesive theme. And it's fascinating. That's what astrology is these reoccurring themes. But yeah, Jupiter can definitely lead to blind optimism, excess, and overindulgence. So we have to be mindful of that. Sometimes when Jupiter is transiting or in a specific spot in our chart, we want to be really mindful that we don't overindulge in that particular area of life.
That can happen for sure.
All right, Saturn. All right, I like Saturn. I know Mr. Saturn gets a bad rap, but I personally really like this guy. His ruler is Capricorn, which is probably my favorite sign. And maybe it's because I married one and my mom is one, and it's just good. They're all over my life. But Capricorn is just, and Saturn in general, is just this hardworking planet. This is where work comes in. The word work and Saturn are just together. It's work that is structure, though, right? This brings the definition into our lives. And this reminds us of our boundaries, our responsibilities, and our commitments. So where you find Saturn is where you are going to notice you've had opportunity after opportunity to work on boundaries and healthy boundaries, healthy responsibilities, not over giving, not over indulging. Saturn's like, no, pull it back. Let's set the limit here, people. Come on. So this is your ruler of limits and time and matter. I like to think of Saturn as the structure of like a lazy river at a water theme park, right? So you've got the hard concrete on both sides, but then within it, you've got flow and you've got ease, and that's the container that holds the water, but it's still a very rigid container that holds the water. You can have movement within there, but still you got to adhere to these limits, because that's just how Saturn is. So these are the lessons that help us grow and mature and then refine ourselves.
And these lessons come around, they will come around again and again in your life.
A lot.
I think many of you have heard about Saturn return. That happens, it starts when you're 28 and a half, and it lasts for around
2-ish years.
Yeah. And that is when most people are faced like a full frontal with Saturn. Saturn asking you, are you doing what you're supposed to do? Are you learning your lessons? Are you listening to me? Because Saturn just wants us to do good in life and to just to do what we're supposed to do here.
It's like the principal of the school. If you do follow the rules, get your homework in, show up to your classes, like you'll get to graduate. Good job. But if you don't, you get in trouble and you get kicked out, and you don't get to have this growth that's needed unless you learn it the hard way and the hard way and the hard way, right? So this can seem depressing, but this planet really brings this structure and this meaning into our world. And it tends to be associated with father figures or authority figures. So sometimes when I see Saturn in certain charts, I'll say, ooh, that's a position where it could be a little bit more difficult. Tell me about your childhood. Was there abuse? Was there neglect? And then usually they have some type of stories that come out, right? And typically from those experiences is what causes us to mature and grow and become more responsible. So it's not always, it's not a bad thing. It's just some people don't want to be
restricted. It's just Saturn just keeps reminding us, though, because it will, like our teacher Deborah said, Saturn will start with a whisper, a gentle whisper, like, remember what you're supposed to do. And then if we don't listen, it will just start yelling in the end and pushing you around, because you're supposed to do these things. You signed a contract. You agreed to do this. Every 7 years, Saturn does like an aspect to your natal Saturn. So every 7 years, you will sort of be reminded of what you're supposed to do. And I'm sure all of us, we have these reoccurring themes that
it's a maturity opportunity is what I like to think of it. Like when you turn 7, you start to grow out of little kid phase and into big kid phase. And then we all know that age 14 is so much fun. It's everybody's most fun time is 14 to 15. I just know it, right? I don't care what country you live in. That is just a crappy time across the board. And so that's our Saturn opposite Saturn, where we're really testing those structures that our parents or caregivers have put for us in place at each side of the lazy river, right? And we really push those edges to make sure that they're solid. And some people's lazy river edges are not solid. And, you know, we've all seen pictures and videos of people's backyard pools falling apart and the water going everywhere, right? That was a Saturn that wasn't very structured. And had weakened boundaries and all the contents inside spilled everywhere. So at 14 and 15, we test that. At 21, again, that's when the government says, hey, you're old enough to be a decent adult now, right? And that's when we step into maturity with maybe dating or family or college or career or whatever's happening there. And then that 28 time frame is when it's really like, have you been learning this?
The big question marks come up.
Yeah. And then you get to start the cycle all over again. Woo. All right. After Saturn, we have the outer planets, we call these. And Uranus is the outer planet that I find the most intriguing. And yes, it is tipped on its side. So if you're watching us on video, you can see my little graphic here as Uranus tipped on its side. If you're on a podcast, know that Uranus was knocked off its orbit millennia ago by an Earth-size asteroid. And it since then has given off a very interesting frequency, kind of unique or eccentric vibration. And that unique or eccentric vibration, by being tipped on the side instead of the orbit it's supposed to be, is really what causes humans on this little planet down here to be so strange when it comes to Uranus.
Uranus is really that the planet of uniqueness. If you see someone with like 3 colors in their hair, or just wearing really funny, interesting clothes, it's Uranus.
You got to know where. Every time I go to a wedding or any kind of work event, I was right next to a lady that this last one, she had buzzed hair and it was like fuchsia, and she was wearing this like teal and fuchsia jacket, and I was like, where is Uranus in your chart? You have to know. It was on her first house. It was on her rising sign.
Perfect. But Uranus is really interesting because it's about uniqueness, it's about individuality, it's also sort of futuristic, the internet, like all of these sort of weird alien things,
ideas, these concepts that don't really come from this planet. And Benjamin Franklin was a very great inventor, and he had a lot of Uranian placements, Aquarian placements. Aquarius is the ruler for Uranus, and they very much think in a way that's not of this particular world. And it is a very futuristic thinker. So they tend to balk at tradition, and they like to celebrate originality and individuality and eccentricism, being eccentric. Right? There's always these eccentric people you see on the street, and you're like, oh, look at you being all Aquarian and Uranian. Look at you. So this is where we see people refuse to blend in with others. Like we just said, you'll notice that if Uranus is a dominant placement in your chart, you just can't not embody that energy.
No, it's the two different color socks.
Oh yeah.
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 That person.
Yep. This is also enlightenment and progressiveness and objectivity and ingenuity. So really, again, those words that are bringing in ideas that nobody else would think of. You know, somebody who's got this strong Uranian placement is just, they don't think in the same way. My Uranus is in the 6th house, and that is the day-to-day work and routine and the house of health. And I am a health coach who uses astrology and emotional well-being to heal physical issues and physical ailments. I don't know anybody who does what I do.
No,
so
true.
It's an interesting thing to, you know, really embody this Uranian energy every single day in what I do. And it's connected to my moon, which is my emotions, which is in the 12th house of past lives and generational stuff. So I help people deal with generational trauma, past life trauma that is coming into their life now and causing health issues and health imbalances. And I utilize all of my weirdness to pull together answers and give them a new view in a way nobody's ever given them. No doctor will ever give them a view the way I do. And it's just, that is a very Uranus type.
Yeah, it's energy. Like Uranus, that energy sort of has these antennas out into space and can just sort of download things that no one else would have ever thought about.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Uranus is also the rebel. It's the rebel for sure. And it can cause chaos in your life. It's also very
for sure.
chaotic planet. Yeah, it has chaotic energy. It can, it's disruptor. If you have Uranus transiting your sun, for example, that would mean that this disruptive energy is causing you have disruption for your whole self, like your whole who you
your
think
willpower, your life force, your vitality. Because mine is at the exact degree opposite of the moon. When I am not emotionally stable, and I didn't have when I was young, 10 years ago when I had the 3 kids right in a row, I didn't have the emotional tools to deal with these kids. And Uranus is the ruler of the nervous system. And my nervous system in my house of health completely went offline. It crashed. And my adrenal glands completely crashed. I had what was called adrenal failure. My immune system, that's the word I'm looking for, my immune system followed, and that started to crash. My physical health just, I mean, it was like this avalanche of crap because Uranus is not fully developed and it is a reactive planet. And these people who have very strong Uranian placements, which mine is in my day-to-day work and routine, when they're not in tune with these energies, it can be highly disruptive. But the more you tune in with it, then you become intuitive about it. So now, because I've gone through this crash, I know what it feels like. And now I'm super in tune going, like this is going to stress me too much. I can't attend this event, or I can't do that because like I know what my system can handle now. I'm hyper aware. And so that Uranian energy wasn't developed. And then I made sure to develop it because I want to do that again.
You needed it.
So that's, I think, a big one is knowing the house that Uranus is in is important.
For sure, for sure. And right now we have Uranus in the sky is in Taurus. So all of you who have placements in Taurus will have had or will in the future, soon future, have Uranus transit one of those planets. And Uranus moves very slowly, and it's been in Taurus for I don't know how long.
2018 until 2026.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Taurus, we talked about this a couple of episodes ago, but Taurus represents, for example, food and safety. And what we've been going through now globally is really those questions about food and safety. Food
issues. Food scarcity. The last time Uranus was in Taurus was when the US Great Depression happened. and food became a massive issue. Finances became a massive issue. Taurus rules finances. But then from that chaos, from that shakeup, it's like shaking up a snow globe. From that chaotic shakeup, you get systems put in place that weren't in place before. So prior to that, there was no food safety, anything, you know, like food stamps or anything for people. There was no social security system in place. There was no checks and balances for the banks to make sure they had the money they said they had. So that's when the federal, in the US anyway, the federal bank insurance stuff started, so that banks had to be insured to say, yes, we have the money we say we have. And so the shakeup of Uranus leads to better innovation. And if you look at it, we can't keep going on the food system we were going on. We have to come up with more smarter ways of growing food. So for example, I have it's called a tower garden, and it is a vertical gardening system that I have in my tiny house that I live with lots of people. And we grow all of our lettuce and spinach and all kinds of stuff on there. And it's amazing. And that's the type of thing we need to have more of in more people's homes, right? Like more independent growing. More people need to know about foraging and finding food for free. We need more community gardens. That's the Taurian kind of thing that we need to do after this Uranus shakeup.
Yeah, it's so interesting because right now there's so many people who have this will and are going for this. They're moving out of the cities. They're becoming
urban farmers and rooftop farmers, and
they're just becoming more what's that word when they it's like sovereign.
Self-sufficient. And also look at the financial industry right now too. I mean, clearly this cryptocurrency thing is doing something. I don't know what it's doing.
But either.
But I mean, it's something that has got a foothold in our society. I don't know if it's stable enough yet, right? Because again, we're in this Uranus shakeup. So I personally don't plan on doing any crypto anything until we're out of Taurus. But that's the kind of thing. It's a futuristic idea that is kind of taking root in our society. So, but it's still very unstable.
Yeah, but I love to see it like that. Like it's the shakeup that you need.
It is. Now,
it's chaos, but
Neptune is our ruled by Pisces, and this is our nebulous planet. Nebulous in the sense where it's hard to understand, and it kind of rules all things that are untouchable, right? The spirituality and things that are subtle and things you can feel intuitively, right? So this would rule our intuition and where we're very spiritually tuned in.
Yeah. It also, you can see Neptune as this fog or mist, so it can sometimes make things harder to see.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like driving through fog. You know, I hate driving through fog. It drives my brain crazy because you want it to just clear, just get out of my way. And you know it's going to end at some point and the sun will break through and you'll be able to see. But while you're driving through, it's very frustrating to the mind.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, maybe it's exacerbated because my Mercury is in Pisces, but it really bothered fog and driving through snowstorms really bother me when I can't see.
Yeah. But what happens, let's say, if you get out of the car, if you walk through fog, like what happens? You have to trust your intuition because you don't see where you're going.
You do. Very much so. Yeah. And that's what Neptune is asking you to do, is stop using your eyeballs. You don't need your eyeballs for this one. That's Mercury, right? You need your intuitive knowing, which is your solar plexus. So if we're doing the chakras, that's the one right in the center of our body, right below our rib cage. And that is where the center of our being is first formed, right? So we are formed by the umbilical cord, and then we create, the rest of us is split. And then the solar plexus is what is created. And that is a big part of who we are. And a lot of my readings and a lot of my health coaching pertains around their intuitive abilities. And I'm like, you've got to trust your intuition. Your problem is you're listening to your heart or your head, and those are getting you in trouble.
Yeah.
Quit listening to those. You got to go down into your intuitive knowing. And when people ignore that intuition, it gets them into trouble every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. But it can be hard because it is such a fog and a mist and like hiding away.
And our society does not encourage intuitive decisions.
No, because that also means that things might have to go slower.
Right. Or that it's not logical. Right. Because a lot of intuition does not make sense and is not necessarily explainable. So this is the part of you that you've got to learn to trust, because it can cause that confusion and that illusion, right? It can lead to that. But when you're tuned in, it really creates almost like a psychic would be a word, a psychic sensitivity. And this is where people can really get tuned into their dreams and that sensitivity of connecting with anything beyond the veil, whether it's people who have passed over or animal communication or Reiki healers or shamans. That is the world that they play in. And I think astrology plays a role in there too, for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Some of the negative sides of Neptune include deception or trickery, deceit, guilt, and then also addiction. Addiction is one I talk about frequently and openly, because Pisces placements and a strong Neptune placement, if it's not in the healthy realm, can go quite easily into the unhealthy realm. And the unhealthy realm is escapism and checking out. So that would look like checking out into drugs, alcohol, sex, any gambling, anything that is just going to help you get out of reality. And so that's
take you away from feeling.
Yes, take you away from that intuitive knowing that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Video gaming can very much be in this realm, because a video gaming addiction can create, it's the idea of illusion, right? That you're in this reality in this world, but that's not the actual world, right? So video game addiction is a big one as well that I feel is very Neptunian.
Yeah.
Anything else on Neptune?
The nebulous blue planet.
Right.
Just that it rules dreams as well. Yeah. Maybe you said that.
Yeah, there's some people who can remember their dreams, who are super tuned in with their dreams. They usually have a strong Neptune placement. My Neptune is in my 7th house in Sagittarius. And so that's the house of marriage and one-on-one partnerships. And my husband's Neptune is also in his 7th house. And we are really psychically tuned in with each other. Him and I were talking about this the other day. I was like, neither of us could ever lie to each other. Like, we just instantaneously know. Like, there's just like a ping in my gut, like something's not right. And that is actually when we had our marriage faux pas and marriage struggles a couple years back, about 6 years back. That is how I knew. My intuition literally would not let me continue on with my life. It almost like halted me in place until I figured out the problem. It was very interesting. And I remember it coming very, very strongly from my solar plexus. And it was like somebody had like a puppet string that was attached to me, and it was connected to my solar plexus going, you have to listen to this right now. And it was nothing more than that. That's what I knew, that something wasn't right with my husband. Something wasn't right with his decisions. Like things weren't right. And that was the ping. It's that.
And that was,
ping, hello.
Yeah, that was Neptune talking to you.
It was Neptune. So if it's in your 7th house of partnerships, you are tuned in with your buddy, whoever you're working with. And it's not just my husband, it's you and me, right? Like, you and I feel like we have a very kind of intuitive connection. And you have your sun and Mercury in 7th house, and I have my Neptune there. So we have a lot of good energy of connection with one-on-one relationship.
Yeah.
So if your Neptune's in the 12th house, which is ruled by Pisces.
Yeah, I do.
You're going to be really spiritually tuned in, and you're going to have a lot of psychic energy and psychic connections.
And I always remember my dreams. And I don't know, I think maybe dreams for everyone are always weird and crazy. But yeah, I feel like I wake up and it's like, whoa, that was a trip.
And
it's always so detailed. I always remember. And sometimes it's hard because, it really affects. So this is one of those things. Neptune really affects my my days, because I dream so much at night. and I bring the feeling of that into my day.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like I'm still sort of in my dream world for a long time when I wake up.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and I always, I still,
What an interesting concept. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to do whole other show on this one. And then the last one we're going to chat about is our Pluto.
Which is also not a planet, we know.
Right.
So we will call it a planet.
We get it. And we did a whole series on Pluto, but we'll dive into it. So the ruler of Pluto is Scorpio, and that is all about power and transformation. Yes.
Yeah.
So
your
Pluto is also, what people don't realize, it's also connected to your day-to-day expression and how you use your power within your communication and within your expression. And if it's connected to other planets, that'll be even more profound. But Pluto, people really use their Pluto on a daily basis with how they get what they want and how they utilize that power. So, but it's below the surface. It's like subconscious power.
That's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. I love to give my older brother as an example. I love him dearly, but man, this guy has a superpower. His Pluto is exactly opposite his Mercury. And this guy can get you to agree to almost anything you didn't want to agree to and didn't know you needed to agree to. And it's almost like when you get off of a conversation or off the phone or anything, it's like you were just drunk and you made all kinds of really bad decisions. And then you wake up the next day and go, oh my God, what did I just do? Oh, no. He can just get you to do and say yes to anything. And it's amazing. My whole family has experienced this. And I don't quite know how to explain it other than like it's his superpower of using the Mercury, the mind, and Pluto, this power, and utilizing it to get what he wants you to do or what he thinks you should do. And it's not a bad thing. He's never doing it like negatively. It's always, he thinks it's a great, helpful thing. And I love that. But sometimes you say yes to him. Well, most of the time you say yes and you don't mean to. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, but because it's such a, Pluto is it has a very powerful energy, and it can also be manipulation.
Yes.
In a sense. Yeah,
it is. So this is going to show you where by the house, this is going to show you where individuals search for truth and deeper meaning. So Pluto is all about getting at the deeper meaning of things and finding the truth. People with strong Pluto placements, you cannot lie to them. No, they will call you out. They will find the cracks in your story and exploit them. And it's amazing how powerful they can be. So like people with Pluto in the first house or right next, with Mercury, like they just know.
Oh yeah.
Know things.
Yeah. Like you said, under the surface. And and Pluto, it's the planet of it's rebirth. I mean, it's death and rebirth.
Yeah.
So it's destruction and like rebuilding and transformation. So Pluto sort of wants to. It really wants us to heal. It really wants us to heal.
It does. It's not a negative planet or a bad planet. It's just you've got to understand. There is going to be a transformation, whether you want it or not is irrelevant. My Pluto is in my 5th house of procreation, and that means baby making. And I'm currently 16 weeks pregnant, and with the 5th baby, that was not a planned baby. And I struggled with that because I had fertility issues for years. So I was obsessed, because Pluto rules our obsessions. I was obsessed with becoming a mother, and it helped me to transform what I needed to transform and become healthier. And then I ended up having my children, and that was great. But then, of course, there's power struggles between me and the children because 5th house rules children. And then the obsession with the children, is kind of still in the works, but it definitely can manifest in a way that you're not ready for, and maybe a transformation you didn't particularly want. And it doesn't matter. You have to go through it.
I mean, it
Too
was
bad.
chosen for you probably. But
Right?
yeah, I mean, so to transform, you need to sort of burn everything to the ground.
You do. You
Yeah.
do. And that can feel quite painful.
Mm.
At the same time, as with certain forest fires and stuff, that heat is what opens some of those seeds, and some of those seeds don't open without that kind of heat and that pressure.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not a bad thing, it's just a powerful thing, and it's intense.
Yeah, and we're scared of everything that's related to death in any sense. So
Yeah,
I think that's why Pluto has like this bad rep,
I think
because
so. I
yeah,
think so. I
it's
think
really
I think there's definitely
lovely.
cultures that are more Plutonian cultures, right? That definitely
Yeah.
embrace this
Yeah.
and really have this understanding of this transformation. But for the most part, I would say the Western society, Western world is really shuns that
Mm,
type of
yeah.
energy, really.
Yeah, but I feel like Pluto has it's making a huge comeback. Because
Well,
people are like, it's a lot of like shadow work. People are looking at their like darker sides, um, working with trauma,
yeah,
all of these things.
yeah, yeah. And I think that has a lot to do with the generations that Pluto goes through, because it's a generational planet. It takes
Yeah.
a long time to go through a sign. And so I'm 40, and my Pluto is about 3/4 of the way through Libra. So there's a
Mm,
big Libra generation that's, all adults right now, and anywhere from probably, oh, I'd have to look at the dates, but it's, 40s, and people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s are in that Libra time frame. And Libra is all about justice and peace and harmony and working together and working
mm,
with the collective and understanding other people's points of view. So the people with this Pluto Libra are sort of starting to make the changes within the government and all of that stuff, right? Upheavals in all of that area are happening, where you're seeing a demand for more respect. Even
mm.
if you look at the Ukrainian and Russian situation right now, like, people are exiting Russia like there's nobody's business. Like, they're getting out of there. They're like, we don't want anything to do with this. This is not
Yeah.
us. Like,
Yeah.
no, this is government, this is other people, right? Like, it's people want respect and they want to get along. We've had nothing but war in this whole last century, and we're tired of it.
Yeah.
We're tired of it. So Pluto is really, I think, a helpful thing in this Libra sign. And then shortly after that is going to be the generation of Scorpio.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Which is
think
my
that's going to be
generation.
fun.
Yeah, I think maybe it's like because I feel like a lot of people in my generation are the ones who are really diving down and doing all of like these spiritual journeys.
Yes.
People who are in their like late 20s, early 30s.
Yep.
And then you have
And they're
Pluto
not
in,
afraid to transform. They're not
yeah,
afraid to say that system's busted. We need to drop that shit. It's not working. Let's do
yeah,
something different. That's the generation that's going to see the changes. It's like our generation with the Libra Pluto is going, hey, let me show you where the scales are tipping the wrong way, or let's let's create awareness around the
yeah,
injustice. And then the Pluto Scorpio generation is going, oh, cool, thanks. We'll make the transformation. Thanks so much.
yeah,
Right. And that's the next line of people coming in.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
like, we need to fix this.
Mm,
And then after that, we're going to have Pluto and Sagittarius, which are
mm, very
teenagers,
exciting.
right? And then our early 20s are teenager people. And they're very much going to be thinking. Sagittarius is thinking of new ways and connecting, and very Jupiterian energy with that, right? Because we
Yeah, I'm
Sagittarius,
excited for that generation to
right?
see what
Lots
they're
of
gonna do. Yeah.
positivity and benevolence and healing and all of that. I'm excited for that.
Hmm.
And then my kids are the Pluto and Capricorn generation. So I have 4 with Pluto and Capricorn, and they're going to restructure stuff.
Yeah, for
They're
sure.
going to create new systems, new structure, and they're going to work really hard doing it, because by the
Yeah.
time we get there, Mother Earth is going to probably be hurting pretty bad at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that I'm like predicting that, I'm just kind of seeing the trend. And then, but with the Pluto Capricorn generation, they know the hard work it's going to take. Like my 13-year-old is well aware that we have a planet that's dying fast. And he's like, yeah, you guys are leaving us and we got to have to fix this mess. Right? Like, he just knows it, you know? And then my new baby who's due in April of 23, this baby will be the first of an Aquarian Pluto generation. So that's going to bring in all of the new ideas and bring humanity together. Is my hope. Hopefully. So when you zoom out and you really look at the Pluto generations we're rocking, you know, I think we're on the uphill swing and we're out of that that individualized energy, right? Houses 1 through 6 are all like individual, and signs 1 through 6 are very kind of individual focused. And now we're in the Libra and beyond, and those are like outwardly thinking of others kind of energies. So I'm hoping.
Oh, what happens when Pluto goes to Pisces?
Right? I won't be around. I don't know.
We will dissolve into, we will just be not mass anymore. We would just be like, we will be love. We will transform into particles of,
Oh, I don't know. Because I really think of Pisces energy as kind of Jesus and healing energies. So maybe we can get to a point where we can heal.
Yeah.
One can hope, huh? One can hope.
Yeah.
So any other comments on the planets?
No, I think I think that's a good start on this Astrology 101.
Yeah.
So next time we will do an episode like this, we will go through the signs and the energy of the signs.
Yeah, for sure. I love just helping people to break this down and make it practical. I know astrology can feel so overwhelming. And I just want to help people understand how this applies in their day-to-day life and what this would look like in the reality of it. Because it can get really, really overwhelming and woo-woo, right? It can get super out there. So,
and a lot of words that you don't know.
Yep. So I like helping people understand this. So thank you for joining us today and listening in or watching and learning about all of the various planets and how they might show up. And if you'd like to have a reading, a personalized reading, or be on the show, send us an email, ramgoatastrology@gmail.com, and shoot us a message. And please feel free to share this with all of your people.
Please do.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in. If you would like to be a part of our show or have a personal reading done with us, email us at ramgoatastrology@gmail.com. We can't wait to hear from you. See you next week.